Dagmara. And Dagmara, would you please tell us what you will be doing as our timer for today?
Thank you. I will be your timer today, and as timer, I will be monitoring the time that you're taking for speaking. Sorry, I just lost my precious, colorful carton. So at the green, I will show you this one. I believe you speak between 5 and 7 minutes. So at 5, I will show you green. At 6, you will see the yellow. And then at 7, green. And I believe you have 30 seconds to wrap up. Then I will be signaling also for our segment of table topics, where we speak at the maximum. I believe it's 1 minute 30. I will check the time. And also for evaluator segment. If you want me to signal with the sound, please let me know privately, and I will also at the red light signal. I hope you can hear that. Just let me know in private chat. Thank you, and back to you, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And our next supportive role is our all counter, and that is John Callahan. John, hi.
Hi. One of the things we strive to eliminate in Toastmasters is the use of filler words. So I'm going to be listening for ahs, ums, you knows, so's, xeroxes, which is the repeating of a word, and make note of them and give a report at the end so that we can all strive to not do that.
Thank you. Thank you, John. Our next supportive role is Marion, and I believe that's now Joey. Joey, will you help and tell us what you will be doing as our...
I will be noting when people use the word of the day, glossophobia, when they're speaking, and I will make any suggestions if needed for proper grammar, and I think that covers everything.
Thank you so much, Joey. Okay. And our next supportive role would be our watch counter. My apologies, our watcher. And that is Diane. Hi, Diane.
Hi.
Thank you, please.
So I'm going to be looking especially at the primary speaker at the moment to see how they present themselves on screen. Is it a professional look, or could it be tuned up? And also generally during the meeting, looking to see if there's anything else that can be addressed.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so much. And next we have our chat monitor, David Carr. David, would you tell us what you're doing as the chat monitor?
Well, like Watcher, chat monitor is a custom role specific to online clubs. It's just a matter of watching what goes by in the chat, because sometimes it comes by quickly and you might miss something that's good or valuable. I will try and bring it to your attention later. People have posted links to valuable resources and that sort of thing.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And last but not least, our support role is our vote counter, and that would be Marianne. Hi, Marianne. Would you introduce yourself and tell us what you'll be doing as the vote counter?
I am Marianne Magner. I'm a guest today. I am counting the votes, which I presume is we're counting votes for the speaker, for table topics, and for evaluator. Am I correct? Great.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Marianne. All right, we can begin with, we have 3 speakers today. A few roles have changed, but we still have 3 speakers today. Now, our first speaker will be Norman Dowe, and I believe Norman will be evaluated by Tiger. Our first speaker is a direct communicator, Norman. And in his speech, he will talk about the key to being heard, a very important skill for someone who is a direct communicator. Norman? Is he there? Hello?
Unmute yourself, please.
Norman?
Norman, you're still muted. Okay, now let's see. And we're going to share. Now, can you see my screen? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, 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 great. The key to being heard. According to Pathways, direct communication, communicators are competitive, they're decisive and independent. They're called focused, results-oriented, ambitious, goal-oriented, and driven. My guess is that from what I know about my audience, that speaks to many of us here this evening. I don't normally see that as a problem, but in this era where people have actually declared that much that they don't like is fake, there's a real danger that when direct communicators are being decisive and being very clear and to the point, people will declare what they do not like as fake, or just tune out until we're finished. But we communicate not to talk to hear ourselves talk, but to get our point over. A key to being heard is to use a inductive communication style. Now, inductive, it's using a particular set of facts or ideas to form a general principle according to the Cambridge Dictionary. In fact, about it, in the inductive approach, we'd have an inductive element, and then another inductive element, and another inductive element. And then there'll be an aha, epiphany. The person that is listening will understand our point without us telling what our point is. They'll come to it on their own. That's an example. Many of you know about the parable of the Good Samaritan. Jesus had told people they needed to love their neighbor as themselves. And a religious lawyer, they had lawyers back then too, said, well, who's my neighbor? Instead of answering directly, Jesus told a story. He said a traveler was stripped and beaten and left half dead alongside the road. He was passed first by a priest and then a Levite, Jewish clergy in that era. They just passed him by. And then a Samaritan, an untouchable of that culture, saw him, took pity on him, ministered to him, put him up in an inn, paid for his lodging. And then, after telling the story, Jesus asked, who is the neighbor? Well, the answer was, of course, the neighbor was not the religious official. The neighbor really was the person who was not high standing in society, but who ministered and took care and met the needs of the person who needed the help. Jesus used two inductive elements that we could use as we speak. He told a story and he asked a question. The hearers listened to the story, engaged the story, and they got the solution, the point he was making on their own when he asked the question. There is a Jewish parable called The Naked Truth in a Parable that makes our point. Let me read it to you. Naked Truth walked down the street one day. People turned their eyes away. Parable arrived draped in decoration. People greeted Parable with celebration. Naked Truth sat alone, sad and unattired. Why are you so miserable? Parable inquired. Naked Truth replied, I'm not welcome anymore. No one wants to see me. They chase me from their door. It's hard to look at Naked Truth, Parable explained. Let me dress you up a bit. Your welcome will be gained. Parable dressed Naked Truth in story, fine attire, with metaphor, poignant praise, and plots to inspire. With laughter and tears, and adventure to unveil, together they went forth to spin a tale. People opened their doors and served them their best. Naked Truth dressed in story was a welcome guest. In speaking, in my own speaking and using an inductive approach, my mother-in-law paid a compliment to me. She said, Norman, when you're speaking, I feel that we're walking down a path, holding hands and just having a casual conversation. And then at the end, you pick up a baseball bat and hit me alongside the head. That's the aha moment that she got to. I didn't tell her the hard thing, but as I was speaking, it came there. The key to being heard, use inductive communication elements, especially stories and parables. Madam Toastmaster?
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Norman. Our second speaker is John Quick. John is working on his level 3, the visionary communication path. His elective project is knowing your sense of humor. John will share an infamous workplace tale known as the mystery of the missing hot dogs. John?
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Who steals 2 perfectly dressed hot dogs? Says coworker Ron as he stormed out of the kitchen. Let's rewind a little bit to the day before. We had an open house at work. Lots of people in, great time, families and games, new visitors, and of course, free food, a very important part of any open house. And what happens at the end of the day? We're well supplied. Therefore, of course, we have leftovers. As I'm walking out to go home at the end of the day, I see Ron there at the table with the nice pile of leftover hot dogs. And these are indeed good hot dogs. We get them from a good source. They're very tasty. Here's Ron. He's got 2 of them on his plate. And he's so focused. He's making them just the way he likes them. He's got the 2 hot dogs and the buns, and then he puts some ketchup on, and he puts mustard on, and he puts mayonnaise on. I've never even heard of that. Then he puts relish on. And he's got his hot dogs. He takes another plate, puts it on top for safe keeping, for he's just made his lunch for the following day. He walks into the kitchen. I see him in the workplace kitchen, open the refrigerator, and he finds a nice corner way in the back to hide them for safekeeping. We go home. That's the end of the day. Everything seemed to be pretty normal, except Ron had some tasty hot dogs ready for the next day. And really the next day was just like any other. Peaceful, quiet. We're all unwinding after the open house. That was until lunchtime came. That's when Ron comes out of the kitchen, completely red, infuriated. Who steals 2 perfectly dressed hot dogs? And he goes on a rant. There's cursing and there's slamming, and we're in our cubicles peeking over. What could be happening? He's ranting, he's raving, he's breaking things. I made these hot dogs They were so good. And I had them in the fridge. It's the company fridge. Who steals from the refrigerator? Who steals somebody else's lunch? How can this be? And he goes out. He storms out of the building. He doesn't use the door. He's only a few feet away. He breaks through. And there's this human-shaped hole in the wall where he slammed through and left. And we're all stunned, looking around, saying, what just happened? And I don't know about anybody else. I think I should take a break for lunch. And for some reason, I feel like having hot dogs. Well, the end of that day came. Before I went home, I made a stop in the kitchen myself. Now there's 2 refrigerators in the kitchen. There's a black refrigerator and there's a white refrigerator. Yesterday, I did see Ron put his hot dogs into the back top corner of the black refrigerator. Today, I opened the white refrigerator, and down in the bottom back corner, I saw the 2 hot dogs with the plate on them. Ron's hot dogs. Somehow we're in the wrong refrigerator. I peeked out of the kitchen, and there was lonely Ron, still a bit red and angry, I think, sitting there. Now I didn't know what to do now that I found his hot dogs. But I definitely didn't want to embarrass him after that rant that he had about the hot dogs. So I went back to my desk. I opened my word processor. To disguise myself, I used the font and printed out a sign that said, "Annual fridge cleaning. If you've left hot dogs in the refrigerator or any other food, please empty them out by the end of the week." And I taped this onto the refrigerator, and then I quietly snuck out of the building, never to speak of this again. Well, my friends, the lesson that I've learned from Ron in this incident is to always remember to check the other fridge. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you, John. What I know for sure is you have no issues with glossophobia. That was great, thank you. Our third speaker for today is Graham. And Graham, I'm going to ask you to share what's your title topic. I'm sorry, because I don't have a write-up for you. You're a last-minute fill-in.
Certainly, Madam Toastmaster. My name is Graham Cairns, and today's speech is called Thank Pythias. As many of you know, I am an inveterate traveller. In fact, I've even presented in this club from the back of a cruise ship. So today I am combining 2 of my great loves, that is travel and research. This is a research and present speech for a time of 5 to 7 minutes, please, timekeeper. Do you like to travel, ladies and gentlemen? If so, then you should thank Pythias. Toastmasters, guests, let's head back to the ancient world. The time, around 300 BC. The place, modern-day Marseille. The man, Pythias, described by many as the first great scientific traveller. The ancient Greeks were great thinkers, but much of their philosophy was based around the concept of home. Now, What made the voyages of Pythias the Greek so astounding were that he left his home, a colony on the Mediterranean where the French city of Marseille now stands, to travel to the lands and people that Greeks knew only as barbarians. He headed outward until he could go no further. He stood at the very edge of the world, or so it would have seemed to him. Drawn by a thirst for knowledge, Pythias travelled to the outer north, perhaps as far as Iceland, to a place where it seemed like the sky and the sea became as one. Now, those of us in the 21st century, with our high-definition television and our Blu-ray DVDs, we've seen these images. But imagine what it was like for a man from the warm Mediterranean to see this extraordinary vista. There have been travellers who travelled far and wide long before Pythias, but Pythias was different. He was exploring for what we would call scientific knowledge because curiosity was drawing him on. He was, with good cause, seen as the father of scientific exploration, and I would also argue that he is the father of tourism where it is designed to slake a thirst for knowledge. In general, Mediterranean people were fairly wary of the ocean. They saw the sea as the opposite of order. They saw sea travel as daunting and dangerous, but also necessary for trade. The first great sea traders of the Mediterranean, the Phoenicians, who traded a much valued purple dye made from seashells in a secret process. They set up colonies all around the Mediterranean and North Africa, and even further out into the Atlantic, to places like Cadiz in Spain and parts of the African coast. Now, the other great traders, other than the Greeks, before the Greeks at least, were the Egyptians. They appeared largely restricted to land, hugging journeys around the continent because they were so attached to the holy land of Egypt. They felt that if they died away from their land, then they would not be able to be resurrected. So they travelled, but not as far. Let's get back to Pythias and the ancient Greeks. They saw themselves as great explorers, as shown in all of their myths and legends. I mean, the stories of Jason and the Argonauts and the Homeric epics of Odyssey. But as I say, they mostly stayed within the Mediterranean, well, until Pythias the Greek. The Greeks had long traded with the Celts and others from northern Europe, but that trade had always been land-based. And Pythias decided to sail north to see the places of wonder where things like amber came from. Now, amber is an interesting thing. If these measurements are accurate, and there's no reason to believe they're not, he reached as far north as Brittany and the Isle of Man and possibly even northern Shetland, crossed the English Channel to Cornwall where he found the tin mines at the heart of trade that was essential for making bronze. But up until now, he'd travelled on fairly established trade routes. He was now about to venture much, much further. Travelling from Cornwall, he went along the coast of Britain as far as Scotland. He reported hearing of an island that was probably Ireland. He almost certainly stopped on the Isle of the Man and then the Orkneys north of Scotland, and there he was amazed by the height of the tides. Now, he was familiar with Mediterranean tides. They can reach, I don't know, a few metres, but in the Orkneys, they can reach 15 metres or more. And it was this observation, by the way, which apparently led him to connect the moon with the tides. He appears to have been the first scientist to actually publish that connection. From the British Islands, Pythias went further to the edge of the world and beyond. In his writings, Pythias talks of sailing 6 days to reach a mysterious place called Ultima Thule, an island in the cold north, where there are 6 months of day and 6 months of night. Other writers before him had spoken of the land of the midnight sun, so it's possible that he was merely repeating what he had heard. But imagine, if you can, seeing this, where the sea was like a lung, the earth and sea hanging together in suspension. Imagine seeing that slow motion heaving of pack ice for the first time. That fits Pythias' description remarkably well. Then he sailed south along the coast of England and possibly to Europe to see where the amber that I mentioned came from. Now, amber is an intriguing material. It's actually not a jewel so much as, well, it's petrified sea resin, tree sap of forests that grew in northern forests 40 to 50 million years ago. They ended up at the bottom of the Baltic Sea and then the North Sea, and the amber washed ashore. It's golden, comes in many shades, and it often contains what are called inclusions, such as bugs and spiders and pine needles and more. It also has electrostatic properties. If you rub it on wool, many people considered it to be magic because it would attract, and it's also considered to have healing properties. Now, we don't know if Pythias ever saw where amber actually came from, but if he did, he would probably have been at either a port in the Baltic Sea or perhaps in Denmark. Let's go back to this. Now, Pythias returned home to write a book. If you're expecting me to say it was a first travel book, a rip-roaring ride outlining his adventures, well, I'm sorry, you're going to be disappointed. In fact, it was a dry and dusty tome, as rather befitted a man who was essentially a scientist. But what makes the journeys of Pythias so important is that they happened at a time in a moment when Greek geography and exploration was exploding, pushing forth all of the borders of the known world. Around the same time Pythias was heading north, Alexander the Great was heading east, albeit by land, to establish the greatest empire that the world had seen to that point. It's been argued that the combination of those two events created the perfect storm of exploration for exploration's sake, as opposed to exploration just for conquest. So, that's Pythias the Greek. It's a tradition that we still feel today, traveling just for the sake of travel. And if you like to travel, to explore, to see new things, to experience new cultures, then thank Pythias, because he made all of that possible. Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Graham. Oh, sorry, I dropped my paper. Real quick, before we move to our next, I want to just remind everyone, and I'm sorry I didn't say it earlier, but this meeting is recorded. So for anyone that started speaking already, my apologies, but this meeting is recorded. Toastmasters may or may not use it for something, but I am told that I should tell you that. Thanks. Now we move to first request for the timer to let us know if everyone qualified first for the votes. Our
Yes.
timer.
Right, Norman spoke for 5 minutes 21 seconds, John 6 minutes 32 seconds, and Graham 7 minutes and 5 seconds. So I believe he qualified because he could speak 7:30. Thank you. Back to you, Deborah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. All right. So now if everyone could please send your votes via a private message to our vote counter. And that would be Marianne. And as we are doing that, we will move on to introduce our table topics master, Jim Barber. Jim.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. And let's see, I'm having a little video problem here. Excuse me. There we go. All righty. I'm the table topics master tonight, and it's the irony of table topics is that our theme is good health, and the word of the day is glossophobia, fear of public speaking. And so we're entering into the part of the meeting that tends to strike fear into the heart of most people, and that is table topics, an exercise in extemporaneous speaking. What we're going to do this evening is I'm going to give each of you, or each victim that I have this evening, a month. You can speak on the month in general, or you can pick a date in the month and describe why that date is meaningful to you. So whatever you want to do, I give you the month and you talk for 1 to 2 minutes. So let's start with the merry month of May. And let's go with David Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics Master. And of course, the merry month of May does make me think of Camelot and although I think she sings about the lusty month of May, actually. That's what it is. Lusty. And we're in favor of lust here at Online Presenters. You know, focused lust, not just random lust in all directions, but April showers bring May flowers, right? So April is a necessary prerequisite for May. Showers, rain comes into our life, and then along comes May. It's a warmer month. It's starting to think about maybe becoming summer eventually. We're still locked in spring, but we're getting there. We're getting there. The people are wearing a little bit less clothing, and so you get to see what's rustling around underneath there, and some lust may break out. You know, as those of us who are married individuals are supposed to keep it under control within some variation, but Mayday, Mayday. And yet, it's a good thing, Mr. Table Topics Master.
Thank you, David. And now let's kind of go in the opposite direction, season-wise, to November. And Asil, would you tell us what November means to you?
Thank you, Mr. Table Topics, for the question. What November means to me? It's the last month of autumn. Actually, I love autumn because of trees are changing leaves, and it's very beautiful, colorful, green, yellow, red. But in November, it's getting gray, and the trees don't have leaves, but still, it's expectation of winter, white winter, snowy winter, cold winter. So we can play snowballs and we can build snowmen. So November is a good month. Every month is good. Every month has its own characteristic positive things. So it's okay that it's raining a lot. It's okay that it's kind of cold. It's okay sometimes you feel miserable. It's okay that you want to stay at home and just look at the window. But November is a good month. So let's love every month. Back to you, Mr. Table Topics Master. Thank you.
Thank you, Asil. And now let's keep it to the current time, July. We're almost at the end of July. Let's find out what it means or possibly meant to our guest, Joey. Joey, you volunteered to do table topics before you volunteered to have a role, so sorry you're stuck. Tell us about July.
That's okay. This is a great opportunity to get over any form of glossophobia. So thank you for the opportunity to be out of my comfort zone. July, I love July because that is one of the months that my husband is the happiest. He lives for a barbecue. It's hot outside, there's cool nights, he can use his gas grill, his charcoal grill, any kind of grill he wants. There's great food, there's picnics, there's tons of fun in the sun. June is a great month and everybody just seems to be happy because you have your flowers, the sunshine, the beach, the pool, and of course, great food. It's also the middle of the year, so you get to reflect on your year and then you get to make goals for the rest of the year and prepare for get-togethers with your friends and family as the year transitions. And I'm not sure where to look to see where my time is, so I'm sorry. I don't know how long I've talked.
You're still in the green.
In the green, okay. So summertime is great, and I promise I'm not having glossophobia. I'm just having a brain blank moment. And that's okay. Hello, yellow, yay. So thank you for listening about happy times and transitions in the year. Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, Joey. You did great. All right, let's get cold again. Let's go to February. John Callahan, talk to us about February.
Thank you, Mr. Tabletops Master. February. February is an interesting month for me because that's a time of the year that you've closed out your books for the previous fiscal year of business, but now it's time to figure out your taxes that are coming due. And in February, I always have a lot of activity going on with my CPA and my bookkeeper, and we're trying to figure out, okay, you got the corporate filings going in, then you've got all of the individual filings going in. February tends to be a big tax month for me. February is cold and bitter here in Michigan. Last Michigan, we had what was called the polar vortex going on, where everything basically just froze solid. So last February, it was time to get out of here, and my wife and I went off and spent 6 weeks down in Mexico, which worked out quite well because we were down there enjoying the sun, enjoying the warm temperatures. This year, doing the same thing again, because as empty nesters, the last thing I'm going to do is get caught in Michigan in another polar vortex. Mr. Tabletop Master.
All right, thank you, John. And let's see, I'm having a little trouble with my picture-in-picture here. Let's move to, April. It's a great month. We'll find out why in just a moment. There it is. There it is. It listened. Okay. April. And let's find out about April from Diane. Diane, talk to us about April.
Good evening, fellow Toastmasters. April is a fantastic month to be in Paris, apparently. If I have a chance to be in Paris again during April, I am sure I will. I love every second of it. I've had a fantastic experiences there before. The difference, of course, now is with the tragedy of Notre Dame. But nothing can really hold you back when April weather comes on you and comes over you. It just folds over you after generally the long winter, at least here in the Northeast. And so, so I guess April is generally a fantastic time, whether I'm here in the East Coast where I am or in Paris, like they sing about in modern song. Thank you.
Thank you, Diane. And let's see. Did that work? Okay, it did. And okay. We've got time, so I normally wouldn't do this because you've got your hands full, but what the hey, I'm feeling mean, so I'm going to go ahead and do it. Dagmara, as our timer this evening, I would like you to tell it, and by the way, since you are our timer, you automatically qualify, you realize that, okay. Would you please talk to us in some amount of time about the month of August?
Month of August, it's a wonderful time for me because my mom is here, and I'm not sure if everyone knows, probably know. I live in Canada, but my mom coming, visiting me here from Poland, and I was talking about that so many times, how happy I am when I see my family here. She will be here for the entire month, seeing for the first time her grandson, so it will be extremely emotional and a lovely time for us. We have so many plans. I have a huge list of everything that we are going to do. Next week, we are going to see, 2 weeks from now, actually, we'll see beautiful festival of balloons here close to our little city. We are going to visit all beautiful churches because my mom is Polish, pretty religious. She wants to see every kind of church in Montreal. And as you probably know, there was a huge tradition of churches. So there will be exciting time for me. I just cannot wait. Back to you, Table Topic Master. Thank you.
Thank you, Dagmara. And that takes us, I think, to the end of table topics. So, Dagmara, we know you qualified, but could you give us a verbal affirmation or not as to the qualifications of our other table topics victims?
That's right. Everyone qualified. I even managed to check out my own time. So everyone qualified.
Such a deal. Thank you. And would everyone else please pass your votes by private chat to our vote counter, Marianne. And with that, I happily return control to our Toastmaster of the evening. Take it away, Madam Toastmaster.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jim. Next, we're moving to our general evaluator, Roger, and just footnote that I don't think anybody here has glossophobia more than me. Roger, please save me.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. I think all of us play our role well and hide our fear and phobia very well. But I do want to add one thing. I disavow everything that David Carr mentioned earlier about focus or controlled or focused less, but I'll leave it at that. We are going into our evaluation portion of our meeting, and first let's listen to our 3 evaluator on the 3 prepared speakers first, then we'll move on to the other roles also. To evaluate our first speaker, Norman, please help me welcome Toastmaster Tiger.
Thank you, Mr. General Evaluator. Norman, there is a lot to like about this speech. First of all, you have a style. I feel like I'm just walking down the street having a conversation with you. It's very relaxed. It is very comfortable. Second thing is your articulation is excellent. I understand every word that you say, and you have a nice pace. Your timing with the slides was excellent. Lots of times people have slides and they're speaking and the slide doesn't match what they're speaking about. But for you, your timing was spot on. Your reading ability is phenomenal. Books on tape, I've done a lot of listening to books on tape the last 6-8 months because I've been doing a lot of driving. And Norman, you would be an excellent person to do a book on tape. And not only that, but your usage of the word, you used the word, inductive usage style, and then you went into the example of Jesus, which was an excellent example, great storytelling, and then you followed up with the reading. So it was on task and it made perfect sense. Very strong finish. I like how your finish and your beginning were symmetrical. Now, in terms of improvements, and of course it's very difficult to take someone of your caliber and come up with improvements. The biggest thing I would recommend is at the very beginning, you said, can you hear me and can you see my screen, which I think is a typical thing. We all want to know if we're being heard and seen. But I think if you could skip that and just go right into your beginning, it would be much stronger. A challenge would be perhaps to add in some photos. Your screen usage was excellent, but a few photos might have been more helpful. And the last thing, and this is just kind of a general comment, you did not use the word of the day. I know when you have a prepared speech, it's kind of hard to work the word of the day in, but in your case, you had several opportunities to do so. So at any rate, it was an excellent speech. And the highlight for me was your reading. That was really phenomenal. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tiger. To evaluate our second speaker, John Quigg, help me welcome our president, Madam Lois.
Thank you, Roger, my fellow Toastmasters, most welcome guests, and especially John Quigg, who has no glossophobia whatsoever. The mystery of the missing hot dog. I just love the title. There's something about John's humor that just makes me smile. John did something that I think is really difficult on an online club. He stood up. You might not have known that, but by watching John, you could see that you saw more of his hand motions, more of his body motions. And John, I thought you did a really good job. I'm not sure I could do that because of my camera angle, but I'm going to give that a try at some point because you inspired me on that. What are some of the things that John did really well? John has a nice cadence. He has the ability to stop and then throw out his punchline, which just makes it that much stronger. He uses phrases like, storms out of the building where there was a human-shaped hole in the wall. Could you just picture that shape? I would have liked a little more description of Ron so I really could see that shape. Maybe Ron was kind of 280 pounds. We're not really sure how Ron got around, but when it got to those hot dogs, let me tell you, Ron was the very first person to grab that hot dog. Had a little bit of humor about who Ron is. Now, Ron had red hair. When Ron got mad, his whole face turned red, and you could not tell where his hair started and his face ended. It was all one color red. Humor, let's add a little bit more because I've heard your humor, and I know you can do that. I thought it was really interesting that you had a title, The Case of the Missing Hot Dog. Some of my suggestions are to add a little bit more humor and also take it with some drama. I thought the end of the story was you ate the hot dogs. How many people thought that? I'm just curious. Did anybody else say, yeah, we all thought you ate the hot dog, right? And that's how you led us on. I would have loved to have heard you wondering about the case of the missing hot dog. What? You thought I took the hot dog? What? How could you think that? In reality, it was stolen by another refrigerator. And kind of go with that because we were all going down that road. Lastly, when you went crazy, you could pull out your hair, do some other things, roll around. I thought overall, you are magnificent. I love your humor. I thought you did a great job, and I look forward to your next one, Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Lois. To evaluate our third speaker's speech, Graham's speech, is Nick. Nick, come on up.
Mr. General Evaluator, fellow guests and members, thank travel for Pythias, or thank Pythias for travel. Now, I know why my kids think I'm nerdy and boring when I'm on holiday. They must have heard about Pythias at school. Yes, okay, we know about Pythias. We know that Pythias was dry and stuffy, but how was Graham's speech? Let's find out, shall we? In terms of commendations, I felt Graham really structured his speech well. He took us on a journey, literally, and he actually made it engaging, interesting, and factual throughout. The second commendation is the facts really are interesting and applicable and resonate with all of us. For example, he was one of the first scientists to connect the moon with tides. And also, the further north you went in terms of the North Sea perhaps, the higher the waves got, or higher the tides got as you went away from the Mediterranean. So I felt that there was really, really good information throughout the speech. In terms of recommendations, now this is a little bit picky. I think the slides and the videos, there may have been some issues, but bearing in mind that he stepped in with about 5 minutes to spare, I think he did good enough, a very good job anyway, okay? But sometimes the slides can be a little bit smoother, or maybe sometimes we don't necessarily need so many slides. Maybe you can actually put them up, you know, on one part of the background and change the background perhaps. Anyway, that's another recommendation is to challenge yourself. You actually started off with a rhetorical question, but you didn't even pause for a millisecond. So put that pause in there after rhetorical devices. And also at the transitions, when you are actually going from one part of the world to another and so on, put that big point in at the end of the point, at the end of the section that you're speaking, and allow us, either ask us a question or just allow us to breathe and reflect on what you've just told us. It gives us the opportunity to think, wow, what a great person, what a knowledgeable person to share this with us. And also, it allows us to actually resonate, allow us, our brains to resonate what actually happened, what actually you told us, helps us remember. Now, having said that, I really love the fast-paced approach to your speeches. I love this around the world in 380 seconds approach to it. However, bearing in mind that not everybody language is first language is English, you may need to just put those pauses in there to help you resonate. In summary, fantastic speech, great research, really showed good structure. There's some recommendations, a couple of recommendations in there about pauses and also rhetorical devices. But on the whole, fantastic speech. You took us on a journey. Well done. I'll wait to hear your next speech. Mr. General Evaluator.
Thank you, Nick. Madam Timer, please give us the timing for our 3 evaluators. I see that Mara have entered the 3 timers, the timing in the chat box. All 3 of them qualify. So go ahead and pick your favorite speech evaluator and send your vote to Marianne. It's between Tiger, Lois, and Nick. Let us move on to the other role holders and let them tell us what they saw or heard from our meeting today. Start us off with our counting, John Callahan.
There's a lot of high-level people in this club, so there's not a lot of ahs and ums and everything to count. Lois heard nothing in there. Deborah, as Toastmaster, I picked up 1 ah, 1 so. Norman, in your speech, I picked up 1 false start when you said in speaking and then in my own speaking right after that. So it's like you kind of started and then stopped there. John didn't pick up anything. Roger, as General Evaluator, didn't pick up anything. Nick, in your evaluation, I picked up 3 ums. Dagmara, I picked up an and a so. Diane, I've got 1 and 3 so's. Joey, I've got 1 and 2 so's. Asil, 1 ah, 2 ums and 3 so's. David Carr, nothing. Tiger, I've got a couple ums, a false start, and a so. That's it.
John, among everybody's ahs and ums and crutch words, which one crutch word that really stood out throughout the meeting?
Yeah, you hear it all the time. Yeah.
Okay, let's work on those ums. Thank you, John. Let's continue with our grammarian, Madam Grammarian Joey. Please let us know what you heard today.
Okay, everyone did really well with grammar. I heard 1 small grammar that could have been taken out, but it also emphasized the playfulness of what he was saying. David Carr said we're getting there instead of we're getting there. So it could either just be a playful, or if you want to be a stickler, add the G. Other than that, I didn't catch anything. Deborah said the word of the day many times. So good job. And there's my ums, sorry. Jim said the word of the day and Lois said the word of the day. So, thank you.
Well, thank you very much for jumping in and helping out there, Joey. Let's continue on. And Madam Diane, what did you see today as our watcher for the evening?
Oh, I saw so many things, so many wonderful things. One thing that I was paying attention to is the background of people's screen and thinking about how is it that you stand out in a way that is both professional and advantageous to you as a professional. And I think that being neutral, I think Dagmara has a very neutral professional background. And in terms of images, I think that Deborah has done a very nice job, and I hope she sends whatever she's doing, I hope she sends it around so I can figure out what's going on. In terms of where the body position on the screen, I think I'm a little low. I think others are fine. John, when you gave a speech, John Quick, when you gave a speech, it kind of stood out because you were farther back, and I only realized in the presentation where you needed that space because you had a lot of visuals. But generally speaking, a higher up sort of, let's see, Assel, Lois, Graham are doing a nice job in that respect. And one problem with the Zoom technology that we all need to think about is that there's a little speaker and a big slide. So, and I would hope that someday we would overcome that and have a big speaker and a little slide. But when your face is being overshadowed and we're focused on you, then you really need to think carefully about the images that you use. Norman, I found that there was too much text to take in. And so I was thinking about what you were saying. I was reading your slides, and that's just too much of a cognitive burden for me. And that's something I think about as a teacher. And speaking of cognitive burden, you're trying to pay attention to what's going on the screen and focusing on people. And then there's this kind of jokey chatter that goes on. And I think that also places a cognitive burden on each one of us and detracts from the professionalism of the group, and it detracts from the speaker. Let's see. And overall, those were my comments about what I saw.
Thank you. Thank you, Diane. Let's continue on with our chat monitor with David specifically focusing on what have been happening in the chat box.
Sure. Lots of praise for Deborah as first time Toastmaster of the Day in this club. So congratulations, Deborah. Also for John Quick, eventually when he comes out of his shell and develops a sense of humor, people think he might be pretty good. Graham reminded us that when we talk about August being a hot month or November being a cold month, frame of reference might be a little bit different in other parts of the world. We're speaking to a global audience here, so I guess we need to keep that in mind. You can always say, for me, somebody I know said, where I am, it's bitter cold in February. So anyway, something to keep in mind. I did get informed by private chat that John Callahan got his notes a little bit mixed up and that I did have a bunch of ums and ahs. So my reputation as a stammerer is intact. And Tiger apologized for failing to use the word of the day after he challenged everybody else to do so. Graham says we must have glossed over the phobia. So that kind of goes with your month of bad dad jokes and puns. So you're consistent, Graham. We love you. General Evaluator.
Thank you, David. As I'll give a few comments about this meeting on various spots. First of all, thank you very much for everybody being on time and jumping in, and also our guests who's jumped in and took on some roles. Our three speakers, first on Norman, Diane mentioned it a little bit. One suggestion would be when you have a lot of text, you might want to break it up into multiple slides so that you can pace the audience along so that the rest of us may not, some of us may not get lost with it. I want to highlight one thing about John, and I agree with Lois with his challenge of getting up and standing up in front of the camera. I think this particular speech that John gave might have given him the perfect opportunity to walk out of the frame. Usually we talked about how we're going to keep ourselves in the frame, but he talked about how, you know, his friend is going crazy, he's pacing. It may very well that if he paced completely out of frame, might give a few times, may give a little bit even more punch to it. Probably not going to work in every speech, but in that context, I think that might be something to try out. Third, in Graham's speech about, and Nick had mentioned about pauses, I'm going to jump off point and talk a little bit about pauses when you mute and unmute yourself. Because we are talking, right now we have 16 people here. Not only does it matter in your technology, in your laptop or computer, it's going to show up on the other 15 people. Therefore, try not to speak immediately before or after you click any button. Go ahead and take your time. Click the unmute button. Take a pause before you start, because if not, some of the audio might start breaking up and people start losing it. And that's the first impression that people will get from your beginning with that. A couple more things real quick in terms of lighting. I think most people do very well in lighting. Depending on your software, you can lighten up yourself or brighten yourself depending on where you are. The trick of the matter is not what you see right now. The trick is to go see the replay afterwards, because what you see right now in front of your computer may not look what the other 14 people, 15 people see. When you go watch the replay, now you see what everybody else see. Now you can make a little bit of slight adjustment if need be. With that, that's my take of a few comments I have for today's meeting. And at this point, I want to go ahead and give our vote counter, Marianne, the opportunity to let us know the winners of today.
Okay, the winners of today. Who would you like to hear first?
Up to you.
Okay, we'll start with table topics. The table topics, we had a tie, but then we had a late entrant, and ultimately John won table topics. Congratulations. The evaluator, best evaluator was Lois, and best speaker was Graham.
Thank you, Marianne, and thank you very much for all of our speakers and evaluator. And I'll turn our control of the meeting back to our Toastmaster of the evening, Deborah. All yours.
Oh, thank you. I thought we were turning back over to Lois, but I want to just thank everyone for your support, and it's just been wonderful, the learning experience on this with this online. I'm so happy that I discovered it. Actually, a member at one of the brick and mortars told me about it, so I'm happy to be learning with this group. And just thank everyone. I don't know that there was another component once we were complete with the evaluations, other than passing on over to Lois to close us out.
All right, thank you, Deborah. Well, it's just if you wanted to do exactly what you did was thank all of your helpers, and you did a fabulous job. Let's give it up one more time for Deborah. Thank you again. Going around, John, our Vice President of Education, have anything that you would like to bring up?
Yes, we need someone to sign up as the Toastmaster for next week, August 5th. So thanks to Deborah for taking on for the first time. Maybe somebody here wants to try it out.
Asil, would you like to be the Toastmaster of the day?
Okay.
Okay, Asil it is.
Yeah, thank you, Asil. Then the other thing is we've had a couple late cancellations recently, and with an advanced club like ours, it's pretty easy to fill in slots. But I recommend, as Toastmaster, if people are completely not responding to you when you try and ask for their introductions and things in the week before, don't be afraid by like Friday to just knock them off of the agenda. It's your responsibility as the speaker to confirm that you're actually going to speak. Because, you know, with 5 minutes is not enough, but maybe 24 hours. And we can always fit someone in there because somebody's ready to speak. And we just don't want to leave any slots on the table unused like we had to do in the previous week. Lastly, I signed up for August 12th, so that, because I'm not going to be here next week, so I took on the Toastmaster myself for August 12th, so everybody sign up for that one too.
Okay, and I have a speaking slot next week. Is there someone that has not been able to get on the agenda and would like to speak next week? Because I know sometimes it's hard to get on the agenda, so I'm offering it. I'll keep that offer open for 24 hours. Otherwise, I will take it. It's up to you. We are looking for a special speaker on September 23rd. David, I know, has been scouring the internet. John has been scouring this part of the internet. Roger's over here. We're looking everywhere. If you know someone who has something to share regarding online presentations, please let us know. We would love to connect with them. August 24th is our speechathon. If you haven't signed up for that, there is still room on that agenda. That is my meeting, so I want to have a whole bunch of you on it. If you have a longer speech, this is a perfect time for you to sign up. And that pretty much wraps up my ideas. I would like to know what our guests thought of the meeting, starting with Joey. What did you think? Did you like it?
I had a lot of fun. I really did. And I appreciate the opportunity to try to use my green screen in a safe place where there's other people that are doing it. I learned a lot about movement and the lighting and obstructions, my cat, things like that.
Well, we hope to see you back again.
Yeah, I'll be back. I had a lot of fun. Thank you.
Great. Marianne, what did you think about the meeting?
I really enjoyed it. I wanted to be out of my comfort zone, and I was out of my comfort zone. Trying to manage the chat and keeping track of votes was actually more challenging than I thought, but I managed. And I know I have a lot to learn, and I think in this particular format, I think I would learn a lot, certainly on online presence. And any tips in terms of for me to improve the lighting, I would greatly appreciate, because I can see that my lighting is not the best. But thank you. I will definitely be back.
Wonderful. Well, we do stay on a little bit afterwards. We adjourn the meeting, and I know Roger he's already biting at the bit. I see him. He's leaning forward, ready to tell you how you could do that. But we'll take care of that at 9 o'clock. And I know David's doing it too. They're all ready to tell you what you could do. Trust me, these guys have a million ideas. Are there any other questions? And did anybody raise their hand for next week giving a speech? John Callahan, have you given a speech here yet?
I have.
Are you almost ready for another one?
No, I just finished one at my Sticks and Bricks last week, so take me
All
a little
right.
to get another one ready.
No problem. Nick, have you been on for a while?
I haven't actually, but I'm finding the late nights really difficult at the moment, and I can't guarantee
I
as
understand.
I'm away at the weekend. So
All right. Well, I will leave it open, like I said, for another day or so. And if somebody wants it, great. If not, I'm going to go ahead and take it. And with there not being any more business, Roger, David, did you have anything else you wanted to add? Then we're going to go ahead and close this out. And I think some of us will stay on for another 5 or 10 minutes if you have any questions, problems, or concerns. Thank you all for a most magnificent meeting. Have a most excellent weekend. Good night.
Good night, everybody. Marianne,